Hey everybody, welcome back to the Average Dude YouTube channel. So today we are going to be installing a Can-Am Defender lift kit on my 2022 UForce 1000 XL. Now, I had seen a couple posts in Facebook or on Facebook that say that this can be done. I'm not gonna lie, I already started kind of mocking it up a little bit just to see if it would actually work before I started making this video. And there's some extra stuff that you're gonna need before you can actually install this lift. So it's not just a bolt-on lift. Now, some people may ask, well, why are we going to try to put a lift kit on from a Defender onto a UForce when it doesn't even fit? Well, it's about $150 less expensive than the UForce lift kit. So we're going to give it a shot. Like I said, I mocked it up. I'm pretty sure we can get this to work without having any issues. But if I do have any issues, I'll let y'all know and post this video regardless of whether or not it works. But I'd rather let you guys know if it works or if it doesn't work and what you need before you get started. That way you're not chasing your tail like I've been over the past couple hours, just trying to figure out exactly what we need. So first and foremost, this is what comes in the kit. So don't mind my sway bar stuff over there, but this is the kit that I got off of Amazon. It was like $60 or 50 something dollars. I'll put a link in the description below. There is a less expensive kit that's like 30 something dollars. I'll put the picture up here. So this is what comes in the kit. You get your 4 brackets. They're all exactly the same bracket. You get 8 bolts, and they are 8.8, so they're actually good quality bolts. Nice and strong. You get 8 washers and 8 lock nuts. So watched a video of installing this on a Can-Am, and basically what they do is they sit this over the control arm, and then they put the shock in here, and they use 2 of these washers, 1 on each side. And then they just go ahead and put the nuts in. Now on the UForce, the shock is smaller in that area, so the sleeve for the bottom of the shock is actually smaller, and these brackets do not fit on the top of the shock. They don't reach the bolt holes, so that's not an option either. And like I said, we're going to give this a shot. We're going to see how it works. I have been kind of running through it a little bit over the past couple hours just to see what I can use that I have at home to make this work, but I will show you that process of what I'm using as I'm installing it and why. So the extra stuff that I found that I'm gonna need to do this is right here. So I have these 4 washers. They're pretty thin washers, really thin actually. And then these 4 washers, they're beveled. So these are actually off of header bolts from a Ford 460. So I just had them laying around. And then this piece of copper pipe. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that, but I think it's pretty important that we use this. Doesn't necessarily have to be copper, but it's easy enough to cut. Don't have to make a bunch of sparks and stuff like that. And then tools that we're going to need. So definitely this lady's foot or alignment tool, whatever you want to call it. 15mm wrench, your 19mm socket to get your lug nuts off, pipe cutter for your copper pipe, 15mm socket on an impact, or if you want to do by hand, you can do by hand too. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up and measure the UForce first, and I'll show you how I do that. That way we get an accurate number, and then we'll start trying to get this thing installed. All right, so when I measure this, I'm actually measuring from the bottom of the wheel, not the ground. And the reason I want to do that is because the wheel is attached to the hub, which is hooked to the suspension. So if I did it from the ground, I would get some deflection from the tire being bulged out. So if I line the tape measure up with the T over here, so the bottom corner of the T, we are right at 33 1/16 to the bottom of the fender. So what I'm going to write down for that one is 33 1/16. And then on the back here, again, I got it at the bottom of the wheel there, and I'm lining my tape measure up with the top left corner of the R, and that puts us at 29 3/16. So the goal is to get 2 inches of lift out of this. Again, I've been messing around with this a little bit. I want to say we maybe get 1.5 inches, maybe 1 3/4. I don't know if we're going to get the full 2 inches, but I'm being pessimistic. We'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it jacked up. I'll pull the wheels off and we'll start getting this thing installed. All right, so now we're back here. We're gonna go ahead and remove this bolt right here. Lift up on the control arm a little bit and you can see the bolt gets loose in there. You just pull it right out. So now if you take the bracket right here and you sit it like this would be an ideal spot for it to go. However, like I said, it doesn't really fit in here very well, but we're gonna go ahead and get this put in. I'm going to remove my gloves just to make it a little easier for me to work with these washers. And then to show you what I did here, I cut this piece of copper and I'm actually going to set it inside. Take this bracket off. So it'll actually be sitting inside of here like that. So that way, when we tighten this bracket up, if it does squeeze at all, it won't squeeze this factory bracket. So one thing that I have also seen on Facebook is people that have installed these, they're saying that these welds break. And I'm gonna explain what I think is the reason for it. But if anybody that's installed this already and has had it break or whatever, you can comment in the comment section and let me know if this is true or not. But basically, like I said, we're gonna get this on here in this orientation, and then the shock is gonna go in there. But before we put the shock in, I'll go ahead and I'll get all this other stuff set up. So I'm gonna take one of the thicker washers. This is one that comes with the kit, and I'm gonna slide it in here like so. Take my bolt, get that in, and then, so this is the tricky part. We're gonna get this piece of copper back into place. Okay, so you can see here the bracket still does have some side-to-side play, right? There's actually a gap over here on that other side. So I think what I'm going to try to do is actually get another washer over here on this side, thin one. See if I can. All right, so this is where that alignment tool comes in play. So we can go ahead and we can kind of wiggle everything into position. And then that's it, bolts in. So now you can see there's barely any movement there at all. So, but this is what I was saying, that this part of the bracket here doesn't sit correctly on the control arm. So we'll have to see how that is when we go ahead and put it down and after we ride for a little bit. But all right, so now that that's in, I can go ahead and get my nut on. I'm not going to tighten anything down just yet. Okay, so that's not, that nut's on there. All right, now we can work on getting this set into place here. So all right, now we can work on getting the shock set in. So like I was saying before, if you look here, there's a bunch of play. I mean, obviously the control arm's still all the way down, but you can see there that there's a big gap from where the bracket is and where the shock would be. So we're gonna have to go ahead and put our spacers in. And like I said, I measured this earlier, and it's 3/16 of an inch on either side of the shock. So if you can get 3/16 of an inch spacers for each side, you'd literally be able to just slide them right in, and it would be pretty tight getting them in there. But again, you use your alignment tool, get everything lined up, put your bolt in, you have no problem. Well, what I have to do, because I can't find 3/16 inch spacers anywhere, and make sure they're metal. Don't just go to Home Depot and grab some 3/16 inch spacers and, you know, put those in there, because over time they will wear and you'll end up getting play. So I'm taking a thick washer and a thin washer. So the thick washer is the one that came with the kit. Thin washer is one that I had laying around, and I'm going to go ahead and get that set in here. So I'm going to use the bolt, just kind of get this lined up like so, and then get the shock into place. I'm going to lift up on the suspension, and now the bolt's in. So now I'm going to take this washer, again it's beveled. The beveled side is going to go towards the shock, the open side is going to go towards the bracket. So I just need to go ahead and get this squeezed in here. Alright, so I did have to grind this spacer down a little bit. You can see that there. So just where the bracket comes up, the factory bracket, it wasn't allowing this to go in all the way. So go ahead now and just vault this into place. Alright, so that one's in. Okay, so that's the first one down. Now, again, as you can see, that bracket doesn't sit in there very nicely, so we're gonna have to try to get this thing tightened up on the ground and see how it sits. But you know, if we can get it to sit like this, I think we'll be okay. The thing I'm worried about though is, like, let's say we're in a droop situation where this wheel has to come down, you know, is it gonna move and clunk? So I'm gonna have to get that figured out. Worst case scenario, I guess, since it's already on here, and I mean, as long as we get the lift out of it that we need to, I can always take this bracket off and just weld a little extension to it or something like that, or, you know, figure something out basically just to make it so that it holds. I'd rather it be in this position because it's going to give us a little bit more lift than if it was in this position like this. So, but again, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the front doesn't do this and it's just the back that we got to worry about. But I'm going to go ahead and knock the other side out. I'm not going to record that. You guys already saw this one. So, and then, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the front. So I just realized something before when I was telling you guys which tools we were going to need. So you will need a 17mm wrench as well, and a 16mm socket on a ratchet to get these bolts tightened up. The other thing I didn't tell you before, while we were going through this, before I actually started putting everything together, the reason I think that the welds are breaking is because people aren't putting these spacers in here and they're tightening all of this up. And by them tightening this up, it's putting a lot of pressure on here, and there's no, you know, the shock is loose and whatever, and it's actually squeezing this together and it's causing the weld to break. So hopefully with these washers and spacers in here and the spacer down in the bottom, that copper one, it'll prevent that from happening. But again, I'm going to go ahead and get everything tightened up once it's on the ground, and you know, we'll see how it goes. All right, so I got the lift kit on both sides and the rear. I got everything greased up over here. It's been a while since I've actually greased anything, so it's good to just get that done. I am going on a trail ride next week, so it'll be good to have that done, hopefully not squeaking. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw the wheels back on, and then we'll get underneath here once we get the side-by-side back on the ground, and tighten everything up. So remember, when you're putting your wheels on, hand start the nuts, and then also these wheels aren't hub centric. even with spacers on there. I mean, it doesn't matter if spacers on or not, but they're not hub centric, so the wheel doesn't actually sit on a hub like a car does. So when you're tightening these up, make sure you're going across and you're not tightening them up all the way right off the bat. So you want to kind of just get them started. And you'll be able to see when I tighten this one up a little bit, the wheel will actually shift a little. I'm a too ugga-dugga kind of guy. Alright, so whenever you get your car side by side, anything like that, back on the ground, when you're testing out suspension and stuff, you always want to roll it so that the suspension settles. Alright, so I'm going to get my impact in here on these sides here, and I'm going to tighten the bolts, and I'm going to put a wrench on the back side to hold the nuts in place. We're gonna go ahead and tighten up the other side, and then we'll go ahead and we'll knock out the front. All right, so now we're on to the front. Front's a little bit different, a lot more accessible here. The rear one was on the lower control arm. So we're just gonna take this off, and yeah, we'll see how it goes together. So the Can-Am looks very similar to this, but again, the width of this bushing right here is smaller than the one in the Can-Am, so I'm sure we're going to have to go through the same thing and putting washers and all that kind of stuff in there. But I'll go ahead and get started on that. I'll get this bolt taken off, and then we'll see what we need to do. So I haven't messed with the front at all yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be the same as the back, so you know, regardless, we're going to go ahead and take it off, and we'll get started and see what we need to do. Alright, so it looks like it sits in that pocket pretty well. Doesn't move around like the rear one. Let me go ahead and throw bolts in real quick just to see where we're at. So it does still have that kind of side-to-side movement here. So the Can-Am, this bracket is actually lower than it is on the CF Moto, so that's why we're getting this kind of sloppier. But you know, I'm hoping, like I did in the back where I tightened it up, maybe it'll just stay there and we won't have to worry about it. But push comes to shove, if we need to adjust this a little bit, we'll do whatever we need to do to get it on. So no turning back now unless we go with a different lift kit. But either way, same kind of side-to-side slop too. So I already have the washers set up for that, and I have my bushing here, so I'll go ahead and get my bushing installed, and I'll get the washers in there. All right, so go ahead, get this bushing in here, and then let's see, get that bolt to go through. Okay, now I'll go ahead and get my washers. So this is one thick one and one thin one. All right, so it looks like I'm gonna have to not go with the thin one on this one, which is okay. Just gonna slide the thicker washer in here. There we go. So it does have a little bit of side-to-side movement in there, but that's okay. So when I tightened up the rear all the way, this bracket did collapse. So like I said before, if people aren't putting like washers in there and stuff like that, or even like this kind of spacer in here, you can squeeze this so much that it could pop these rivets or these welds. So we got to be really careful with that. But I think with putting these spacers in here, we're going to be fine. My biggest issue is going to be this like side to side movement, the fact that this doesn't sit directly on the control arm. I'm hoping that we don't run into any issues with that. But all right, so now we'll go ahead, and I'm holding a light too, so it's a little difficult here, but go ahead and get this guy in. Okay. All right. So we got our bolts in, get our nuts on here. So we'll tighten this up when we get it on the ground, but and you can see how much this moves. So it's definitely going to be important for us to get it tightened up when it's in that position. So hopefully it stays there. But I'm going to go ahead and knock out the other side, get the wheels on, and then get this all greased up and tighten everything up, and we'll go ahead and measure it, see how much lift we actually got out of it. All right, so we're back over here at the passenger side. I'm gonna go ahead and get my tape measure stuck back in here and come up here to the T, and that puts us at 34 1/4. So we were at 33 1/16. So that gives us about 1 3/16 or so in the front. So does not hit that 2-inch mark that is advertised for the Can-Am. So we'll go ahead and scooch back here to the back and get this set up. So in the back we were at 29 3/16. So let's see where we're at. Go ahead and stick that in there. Get that on the back side of the R, and we are at 30 1/4. So that puts us at like 1 1.16. So we're definitely not getting the full 2 inches out of it, and I think that's because of the rocking motion. So like when we put the suspension down, the shock actually comes further out, so the bottom of it kicks out like this. So if that one leg was longer towards the hub, it would keep it where it needs to be. And I think maybe we'd probably get like, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or so out of that, maybe 1/2 inch more out of that. But even so, that would get us closer to that 2 inch. So installing that lift kit, putting all those washers in there, bushings, all that kind of stuff, it only gives us about 1 inch all the way around. So even though this is a less expensive lift kit, is it worth it? So before you spend the money on it and you get everything installed and all that kind of stuff, is it actually worth it? Sure, we could probably adjust it, shove something underneath that one side of the bracket and get, you know, like I said, maybe another 1/2 inch out of it. But again, is it worth it? All the fabrication, the time, all of that, or is it worth it just getting the you know, the CF Moto specific lift kit and putting that in there? So I'm gonna leave this in here for a little while. Like I said, I got this on Amazon, so it is what it is. You know, I've already done the legwork. You make the decision for yourself on whether or not it's worth it to gain 1 inch of suspension lift out of your CF Moto. So with that, I'm going to end it off here. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm trying to build this channel up as much as possible. I know right now we only have CF Moto content, but I do have riding videos coming, I promise. I just need to get through and edit them. Next week, going on a nice big ride. on some pretty good trails. So we'll be able to test the UForce out for sure, test this lift kit out, see if it makes any noise, see if it breaks, and then, you know, I'll report back to you. But again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.